back with another episode of the Branders Magazine Talking with Branders podcast. I am your host, Stephen Bacanza, and today I'm joined not just by one person, but by two people on the West Coast who, this is going to be so unique, guys. You're going to love this episode, but we're going to be chatting about something that really, as Branders, maybe we don't always think about, or we think about like, oh, that's not for us, but let me tell you, it is for us. We're talking Web3, we're talking blockchain, we're talking NFTs, and we're kind of talking about the future today. Welcome, everyone, Laura Petersen and Raj Khatar to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Laura, Raj, so happy to have you guys here. You have a new book coming out, which we're going to talk about, which is really fascinating because I love the future and I have a child. So this kind of bridges both worlds. But tell everyone everyone listening, who you are, where you come from, and like a little bit of like a 60-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, sure. I'll go. Ladies first. I'll go first.
Yeah, ladies first, Raj.
Yeah. So
that's what I was saying. I said, Laura, go.
Yeah. So I'm from Orange County, California. I live in Southern California now as well, although I lived abroad in Germany, which Raj and I also have in common, which we didn't realize until recently. I lived in Arizona for a bit. So I consider myself a digital nomad by heart, even though I have a home base now that I've got a little kiddo. But my background is I was a high school teacher for about 5 years and I loved it, but I wanted to start my own business. So I left after about 5 years, started a tutoring and test prep company. And then my heart was just pulling me into content creation, digital marketing. So started my own brand, Copy That Pops, in 2015. So I've got a podcast with that same name. And it's just all about writing better for business online specifically, but got really into the NFT world because of Gary Vaynerchuk. And met Raj, and I really wanted to write a kid's book since I've got a kid of my own. And so that's kind of how our paths converge together with this project that we're going to be talking about today.
Great. Raj, tell me about you.
Yeah, a little bit of a unique story for me for sure as well. Just the same as Laura's. A 20-year career banker. I was a vice president at Canada's largest bank. I won't name their name in case they don't want me to, but you can Google it. But after 20 years, I had always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. I'd always started multiple businesses on the side and kept running with them. Also, I'd lived overseas and worked in tech, et cetera, in my 20s. But I've just always had a creative flair, creative spirit to me, and an entrepreneurial spirit. And then as much as I love my time working in corporate banking, it was time to make a move. And like Laura, through Gary Vaynerchuk's network, really got introduced to the whole NFT blockchain space, which, you know, as a 44, 45-year-old guy at the time, I was like, what is a blockchain? I don't even understand it. And so he really opened the door for that education piece. And as we kind of got into that, met Laura, met some very unique people, and realized what digital ownership and creativity can kind of combine together to form brand ownership. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. But that's like kind of my background. And yeah, I left my job a year and a half ago as a VP at 45 and quote unquote retired. And now I am here doing this fun stuff with Laura and a lot of other people.
Oh, that's amazing. And brand ownership, right? Like for all of us branders out there, like, wait a second, let's explore that. But before we get there, we're talking Web3, and for those listening who might just be more on the design side or not necessarily working in emerging technologies, what the hell is Web 3.0?
Raj, go for it.
Yeah, so Web 3.0, I'll do my best as not the guy who sits there and codes smart contracts, etc. But Web 3.0 on a broader scale and a broader level really is about owning what you are creating versus trying to work through a bunch of middle people, distributing ownership, giving up rights, really being paid, or I don't say paid, but let's say compensated for the work you're producing, you're putting out there. We live in a world of social media, digital identities through Meta, through Google, through whoever. And really, if you think about it, you are the one producing the content that people are going onto those platforms to see. But in Web 2.0 and before, really, it was the purveyors of that platform that were benefiting from your work. Whereas Web 3.0 is really opening up that door to you now to take control, ownership, and frankly, get your due rights for the content that you're creating.
The dramatic shift, right? Like you said, between 2.0, where like, oh, just put stuff out there. Now it's like, I think back to now, it's like, wait a second, you put stuff out there, but you don't want to get it stolen from you if you work so hard. I think about Napster. Was Napster like Web 1.0? Is that what we might consider that?
I don't even know if I'd call it. Yeah, probably like Web 0.5. I remember the days. I mean, I think anything that'll give your computer a virus, you have to discount it at least a half point.
Right, right. Which really fascinating was like, I mean, again, year and a half ago, or I feel like it was a year and a half ago, like NFTs were the rage and NFTs were everywhere. And the new book, Duck Buddies, centers around this notion of NFTs, right, Laura? Like, what is an NFT and how did this thinking kind of like spark you to go down this path?
Yeah, so an NFT stands for non-fungible token, which just means that it's a digital thing that you can own and it is unique to you. So something that's fungible is like a dollar bill. So if Raj has a dollar bill and I have a dollar bill and we exchange dollar bills, we're the same. Nothing has really changed because they're basically the same unit. But if Raj has NFT 1 and I have NFT 2 and we exchange them, even if it's a part of the same project, they are different because each one has its own unique digital signature, digital data, digital record. So non-fungible tokens, NFTs, are just digital collectibles. But it's more than just collecting pictures of monkeys that are JPEGs, which is kind of the joke. Like, okay, you just have JPEGs of monkeys. Because of the technology of the blockchain, you can assign a smart contract with it. So if you own this certain digital monkey, for example, the owners of that project know who owns that for all of time and knows when it's being changed hands. So they can assign extra benefits or rewards or surprises or gifts. Or in the future, as the rules become more clear with the SEC, maybe royalties or part ownership in future endeavors. So if a project, for example, gets a great deal with Netflix and puts on a movie in the future, if the rights are, clarified, potentially the owners of these NFTs could share in the profits of that movie going worldwide. So there's so many possibilities that could come from that because the record is on the blockchain. It's now possible to share with your owners, your supporters of whatever you're doing versus it wasn't possible in the past because, you buy a ticket to a movie and the movie doesn't know who actually bought that ticket and all that kind of thing. So, but yeah, to fully answer your questions, or you can jump in, but with the Duck Buddies, we own some of these NFTs upon which we based our art upon. So these little apes are derivatives, so basically inspired by Bored Ape Yacht Club that Raj owns. These ducks are inspired by Sup Ducks. We've got a Moonbird in there. We've got a Super Yeti in there. And future books are going to also be inspired in derivatives of other NFT projects that we own and love.
Yeah. You talk about ownership, Laura, which is really fascinating because like the idea is, so you own, okay. So like when we talk about NFTs, like a brand can create an NFT. And we saw this, right? We saw brands creating NFTs. Where has that gone? Because I don't see a lot of brands talking about that anymore. What happened?
It's definitely still happening. I think brands are being a little bit more careful, more thoughtful, trying to grow maybe more organically than doing the whole hype cycle that they were before. So for example, Starbucks is very much rolling things out. They have this Odyssey thing, NFT Bark. He's find him on Twitter. He's great. He spoke on stage with me at the community stage at VCon this past year, and he's running up the community of that project. So that's a huge name. They are very much involved in it. Barbie is just recently did a collaboration with Boss Beauties, which is another NFT project. So it's absolutely still happening, but maybe the hype isn't
the
quite
hype
as
is
big.
So how can a brand, you mentioned Starbucks, you mentioned Barbie, right? Like two huge worldwide brands that have a ton of customer loyalty. How can a brand use like an NFT to spark customer loyalty and still and still like regain like how can brands use it? Maybe that's a simple question.
I can jump in real quick on a really real life example, actually, that I'm getting the benefit from right now. If you're a sneakerhead,
Yeah.
huge industry, right? And these shoes these days, I mean, Air Mags, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not a sneakerhead, but even I know about them. Just the fact that they're
Right.
so popular, and the prices are so crazy. But ownership of those assets, I mean, you can buy knockoffs, right, of pretty much anything. B, you transferring ownership is also very kind of like, cool, who bought these, who owns these, et cetera, et cetera. The blockchain and NFT technology really helps alleviate some of that. An example is Nike right now. They have these very high demand shoes. They're pretty much like, remember Back to the Future, the laceless,
Yeah.
all this stuff. It's all built in. The shoes are run from an app. You can only have gotten these shoes through the blockchain. So ownership and digital identity and authentication of these sneakers, which are very high demand, is now all on the blockchain and owned through an NFT. So you can actually transfer ownership. People know that they're authentic. They know exactly who owns them, etc. So there's a multitude of examples of a Nike's just
Yeah.
that sneakerheads and everyone can understand.
I mean, you just gave three incredible examples: Starbucks, and then there's Barbie, pop culture phenomenon of the summer, and now Nike. So if brands are on the fence of considering, do we look like? We always warn, if in branding, right? We warn brands like shiny, bright new object syndrome is a fucking thing. Don't don't be persuaded by the glitz and the glam. Maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when all that hype, Laura, like you were talking about, was there with NFTs, brands were just looking to break into NFTs and we got to have an NFT. Now, maybe that's subsided a little bit. So brands that are maybe seeing why should brands consider like incorporating and investing in Web3, like for their future scalability and like to bring it into the branding mix? Like, what are some of the advantages of it?
Well, the first two advantages I think of, number one is sort of like a crowdfunding a new initiative or project. So with NFTs, you can do an initial sale of your NFT project, and that money you can then use to go out and build or try whatever you want to try. And then who were your early supporters, so you can continue to engage with them and reward them, which would further increase the value of that NFT. So in the future, those initial holders, if you continue to add value to it and make it desirable, they could sell it in the future and be rewarded with a profit, basically, for having invested in you and your project and your vision. So that's one way. And then the second way is, I kind of think of it as everyone understands the rewards and loyalty sort of programs. So just at a basic level, you could even offer NFTs for free, no cost. For example, like McDonald's could literally, everyone in the planet, they would want to get their free NFT. And if you have that in your digital wallet, when you purchase, you get little reward points building up, and then you can redeem them. So it's sort of, nothing is 100% new. It's just a new way to approach it. But this way, there's so much more that you can do it because of the blockchain technology. And if you're still kind of like, what the hell is a blockchain? I think of it as just a worldwide ledger of data that is decentralized. So that means no one person can mess with it. So no one can just say, ooh, I want to reward my buddy and just erase all this data and transfer all this to someone else, because there's layers and it's decentralized. No one person, entity, country, nobody controls it.
The checks and balances.
Yes, it's more fair.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing.
You talk about McDonald's. I can see the Hamburglar having like something, right? Because the Hamburglar at the thief, but like there's like a tension there that's really cool.
That could be fun.
I read I think it was a Cal Newport book. If you're familiar with Cal Newport, he wrote Digital Minimalism, and I think he wrote something else. I think he was the author talking about blockchain. And what really intrigued me when we talk about decentralization and no one manipulating records comes to health records. Right. And even voter records, like these are two hot items. But when I was recently at the doctor and I have no idea, like they sat me down and like, so Steven, you still smoking? And I was like, I'm sorry. And like, sure, I smoked cigarettes back in the day, but I'd never consider myself a smoker. And like, oh yeah, the last time you saw a doctor a couple of years ago said you were a smoker. I'm like, get that? No, I'm not a smoker. Like you erased that right now. But like, how the hell do I know, number one, how that got on there? And number two, did they really erase it? I have no idea. So will blockchain alleviate that pain point?
It's infutable, right? Like you can't manipulate it. And that's the beauty of it. And to your example, if you're, let's say you're an insurance company,
Yeah.
right? Their records can be stated, like to your example, someone who stated that they were a smoker in their 20s or 30s, then comes back and says, I never said that. If you're an insurance company, I'm speaking from the corporate standpoint now, but well, yes, you did. It's right here. It's recorded on the blockchain and no one can manipulate it.
Right.
And it's public too.
And it's public.
Mm-hmm.
How might, and like, hey, we're not in an election year, but we're kind of in an election year. Raj, for your friends that live south of you, our political, we have some political issues. I don't know if you heard about this.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
Laura and I talk about it all the time. We get a lot of American news up here.
How might the blockchain help with voter fraud? Just big question. I don't know. Like,
I do a little bit of political consulting up here. So just to be clear, I'm in Canada, so no bias or anything toward anyone in the South. I think that it's been an election issue that's now been brought up numerous times around voter identity, voter fraud.
Yeah.
And, the debate can go on about how big an actual issue it is. But regardless of that, I think to alleviate the stress of it even being an issue, the blockchain can, again, verify identity, right? Through keys, through certain aspects of your wallet, etc. People can use that to actually identify themselves, which is what it's done now through NFTs, smart contracts, etc. When you are doing something through a project, one of the things they ask you to do is to identify that you are the actual owner of that asset or of that wallet or that Ethereum wallet, for example, in this case. And the same can be applied to voter registration and voting, frankly. That's the biggest threat to digital voting is people are always afraid of that. Well, I mean, the hacks and people can get on my account and do all this stuff. Well, blockchain can eventually alleviate that. I'm not saying we're 100% there in any of the technology, but we're very, very early days on that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys consider yourselves both like in the you guys are early adopters, right? And like we haven't reached critical mass. Like we haven't reached even close to it, right? Like if someone were to all of a sudden geek out on blockchain today, would you consider them an early adopter too?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like there's so much runway.
I was in around the early days of the internet. I'm old enough for that. I was working at a tech company in Europe in 2001 when the tech bubble burst and everything collapsed, right? And there are articles, if you Google articles from the late 90s, you'll find articles that saying the internet is a scam. The internet is
bad.
Passing pad.
Passing
fad.
Passing pad, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I hear that.
Yeah, the brain definitely crossed wires there. But yeah, you'll see the same articles, the same arguments that are being made today about the blockchain and NFTs as you did with the internet. Because let's be honest, to your point, the flashy new sparkly thing back then, people were abusing it, and people would just say the word .com and get a check written from a VC.
Yeah,
and we're kind of living through that right now again.
And also, just like back then, Raj, you can attest, it's not super simple to get a digital wallet, to get Ethereum and transfer it in and make the purchase and make sure
It's
that
complicated.
it's confusing, and it can be very overwhelming and scary because you're the custodian, you're the one in control of your stuff. There's no FDIC insurance. So if you mess it up, no one's coming to help you recover.
Right.
So it is
Right.
scary and it is complicated, but that is going to be temporary. There are going to be measures and new developments to make it simple, just like purchasing something with a credit card that used to
Yeah.
be hard. You had to fill out a form and then fax it in and then wait, like all this stuff. And you're like, I hope no one steals my credit card. But now it's all on one click, or even
Yeah.
just happens automatically in the back end. We don't even care or realize, and we're super secure in that. So things are coming to make that easier.
No, and I feel that, and even with my colleagues within the branding world, like we know that this is a thing that like brands need to consider this as part of their branding mix and their marketing mix, and that's not to say that like you have to jump on this right now. If you're a brand listening, like don't abandon your strategy and invest heavily into blockchain. But like, I think it's more along the lines of like, you have to be aware of this. One of the things, so within the branding circle, the very simple definition is a brand is not what we say it is. A brand is what they say it is, them being the audience. So like I wanted to think about branding in the blockchain through that lens, right? And if a brand is created within the parameters of Web3, right? And like within the like that is the precipice to making a brand. In theory, through like Web3, and like if a brand is created in blockchain, in theory, then it is belonging to or owned by its community. But that's kind of counterintuitive to the notion of like no one really ever owns a brand. The brand never owns a brand. It's the customers. What is like a statement like that? Like how will brands have to navigate, knowing that like the community is going to own them? Like it's almost like a counterintuitive thing for us branders to think about.
I think the key there is, though, your community is your customers. They're one and the same, right? It's just that you're rewarding them for being that customer now.
And being
goes back to that loyalty play. Yeah. So you're rewarding them in ways like could be financially, it could be a number of different ways.
Yeah. I in the early days, again, there's a lot of clarity still to come from security regulators around the world on this. But in the early days, when I was getting a lot of questions around what is Web3 and what is NFT, and are you crazy for leaving your job for this stuff? The answer simply was that, take your real world example of a musician right now. They are out grinding the YouTube circuit, the Spotify circuit. They're out there putting their music out there. They're building a fan base, right? And thankfully, these platforms do exist now. Then they didn't exist, 20, 30 years ago, where you couldn't build a fan base like that. You had to go to coffee shops and busking on the sidewalk, etc. But now, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's relatively simpler to create a 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 base following.
Yeah.
If you've got some talent and you're putting some good stuff out there. Well, those are, to your point, those are also your customers that would buy your CD, right?
Right.
And that would stream your music. Sorry.
Buy your mixtape.
We're in. Yeah. In 2023, these are your customers that would stream your music. But in the days of old, you would just pray that you'd build a following and a record company would notice you and then take 95% of your profits from you.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can go out to your community and saying, I want to produce my first record, and I'm going to raise the funds through crowdfunding, like Laura said, through the blockchain and NFT technology. And in doing so, I'm going to issue NFTs that potentially, again, a lot of clarity to come from regulators, but could potentially also mean ownership and rights. So now, instead of giving up 95% of your ownership and rights to your music, you share 20% of it with your community and you keep 80% of it for yourself.
the big takeaway here, right? Like in brand building, we always talk about this notion of we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Listen to your audience. They're going to tell you what to make. They're going to give you all the answers on products to push out there. And you know, what I'm hearing is like brands that are able to have that full, sincere transparency are going to get rewarded by these fans in their community purchasing their products and becoming even more evangelists of the brand. I think about like a Patagonia. If a Patagonia were to do something, and maybe they have, and I'm just not familiar, but like they strive to be the most transparent brand on the planet. So I can imagine, you know, like there are a lot of brands that you know, can leverage this for good. Will there ever be an instance, or has there been, where like this could be leveraged for bad? Like, where's the harm in blockchain?
Good question. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is scams. I'm sure there's a million things. Any technology comes in with bad, but definitely there's a lot of social engineering scams. So basically, you know, like one thing that I've heard about is where someone will reach out to you posing as someone else, and they'll have the same profile picture and the same name, but just like a period is different, but you maybe don't notice that. And they try to build a relationship with you over days or over weeks so that you feel super comfortable and you think that they're legitimate. And then they say, oh, will you go to this link and do this, or limited time offer? Oh my gosh, I just heard about this crazy, amazing, you know, get in early. And so they have this time scarcity and get you to click on a link and enter in your private key. So now they have access to your wallet, and they drain their wallet and everything is gone. So it's a bit of a wild, wild west. So you have to be even more vigilant, even more aware, and very careful about protecting your information and verifying with whom you're speaking to make sure that they're legitimate.
Yeah. That is one thing with the blockchain, is once the transaction's done, it's done.
It's done. There's no calling, can I speak to a manager?
Right.
No
parenting will get you.
You are the manager. So Laura, I think this is more geared towards you. Like, why a children's book about NFTs? Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, so I have a son who just turned 4, and my background is writing because I've helped hundreds of people to write and self-publish their own book in the nonfiction world.
Yeah.
So as I'm reading children's books to my son, I'm always thinking, oh, they should have used a different word here, or this doesn't make sense. Or, you know, I'm critiquing. That's me. I'm like a word nerd. And so I always keep saying, I'm going to write a children's book. And I just got tired of hearing myself say it, but not doing it. So I put out a post on social media actually about a year ago. So this is at the end of 2022. And I said, that's it, guys. I'm writing a children's book. Who loves to illustrate? Do you want to partner up? And let's just do a fun project together, because this is a passion project. I'm not expecting to be J.K. Rowling. Although if people want to buy a ton, go for it.
Sure.
You never know.
Yeah. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. But, you know, it's something that I love. And so originally I wasn't thinking necessarily about an overlap with NFTs. I definitely thought in the future, maybe if I did grow a community and a following around my books, I could create an NFT project and build it in or give rewards and things. So, but I just thought I'm not far enough in the Web3 world to initiate it from the start. I just kind of wanted to write a children's book. And so, but I'm not an amazing illustrator. So Raj saw that post and reached out and was like, hey, let's have a quick convo. And he said, I've got the IP rights to some big projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club, Sup Ducks, and other ones, Gutter Cats, Super Yeti. And not all projects allow you to use their IP, and they have different levels of that. So just as a clarifying thing. So like VFriends, Raj and I both own VFriends, but Gary has no IP rights for the
Gary
owners.
Just made it, put it out there, and put the community.
Yeah, we get other benefits, but not IP rights, because he wants to control the IP himself and build out books and movies and games and all the things with his. So he doesn't want other people to do that to maybe dilute the brand. Yeah, that's his argument. So there's different levels of IP rights that are allowed depending on the projects, and so you get to decide that as the initiator of the project. But Raj reached out and he was like, I've got the IP rights to these projects. They're just sitting there, and it's, crypto winter. So everything kind of feels wah. But I still believe in the purpose of Web3, the vision behind it
Yeah.
all. So do you want to partner up, and you can use the artwork as inspiration? Because the original artwork, like one of the monkeys or one of the apes is smoking a cigar. So we're not doing the exact artwork.
Yeah.
We want to do
Is
derivatives
that a
of it.
cigar, or is that a big fat blunt?
Oh yeah, that's true. I'm such a
cigar,
novice
Laura.
to that. I'm sorry. He's smoking a phallic shaped thing. I don't know. You decide. Yeah.
Up to interpretation.
Yes. So I wanted to make it cute for kids, but I loved the idea of using them as inspiration. And so yeah, I wrote the book. I mean, I really wrote the story in under 48 hours and like sketched it out. But then
Yeah.
I needed to find an illustrator, and things got busy with the holidays. So I kind of put it on the back burner. But then as VCon was coming up, which is Gary's conference that Raj and I always attend, Raj and I were just like, all right, let's get this thing done so we can bring proof copies printed out to VCon. We got Gary to sign one. We got the Subducks founder to sign one, and just kind of have fun with it, because that's really a niche audience for us, is people who love this. So the book itself, you can read it if you have no clue what NFTs are. It's great for kids 3 to 8, but it's got some funny wordplay jokes in there that adults will have a good laugh at. You don't need to know about NFTs at all, but there are hidden Easter eggs inside. So people who are familiar with Bored Ape Yacht Club and Subducks and other projects, they'll see special little inside jokes that are hidden in there as well.
Super fun. Congrats. It's just launched, right?
Yep, it's live on Amazon.
It's live. Is the future for Duck Buddies, you're going to be making more books and more content around this notion?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we called it Duck Buddies World as sort of the overarching brand, because we're going to have books with other characters as the featured main character. So at the end of Duck Buddies, there's a super yeti that's hiding in the tree. So kind of like those Marvel movies, where you watch to the very end and it kind of gives you a little hint at what might be coming next.
Yeah.
So we put a little super yeti in at the very end. And our plan is for the next book is to feature a yeti as the main character, and maybe have the ducks in the background somewhere. And then maybe we do something with cats for gutter cats, etc., and just kind of keep growing it.
Super, super fun. Congrats you two on this launch. Like, this is so unique. And in the brand world, we cannot be naive to the way blockchain and Web3 is going to impact the work that we do, especially for those of us who are on the design side. Like, we need to be aware of these changes that are rapidly coming. So I appreciate both of you coming on the podcast. Laura, Raj, please tell everyone how they can get in touch with you. And I think most importantly, Laura, where can they buy their own version of Duck Buddies?
Well, I'll say the first thing is you can go to duckbuddiesworld.com, and that's sort of the main headquarters for things. You can read a bit more about Raj and me and learn about the characters. There's a button on there to click, and it'll take you over to Amazon to purchase the book. It's definitely on Amazon, so you can search Duck Buddies, and then the subtitle for this first book is The Secret Clubhouse. Ooh. More to come. And I'm on all the socials at Laptop Laura if you want to connect with me directly too.
Very cool. Raj, and how about yourself, sir?
Yeah, same thing. I'm on all the socials, pedactor.eth. On Twitter is my main platform. If you ever,
I'm sorry, it's called X these days, not Twitter.
Sorry. I forgot. I sold my Tesla last year, so I kind of fell out of love with Elon.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, pedactor.eth is kind of my blockchain name. If you want to contact us there. And we're here to, answer any questions you might have regarding the book, of course. But if anyone's ever interested in Web3 NFT technology and what it is and what we perceive it will be in the future, we're always happy to have that discussion with anyone.
Amazing. Raj, Laura, thanks so much for joining us. For more on the Branders Magazine, Talking with Branders podcast, check us out at brandersmagazine.com. And for more on myself, I'm at stephenbaconza.com. And I'm only on really one of those fancy social networks, although you can probably find me on the other one. But LinkedIn is the name of the game for me. Until next time, guys, peace out.